Becoming a federal MP involves issues that are not directly related to Vancouver East. What will you want to say about national defense and about foreign affairs?
Well, I grew up when Canada was still a peacekeeping country. And right now, I'm so disappointed in our foreign policy. I'm so disappointed in what we're doing in the Middle East. I'm so disappointed in how we use fear of terrorism, when the reality is it's countries that are destabilized, that are turning mentally ill people into weapons. That's going on. So in terms of foreign policy, I want us to return to being that nation. We need to be the beacon for the world. We're the most multicultural society on the planet. We can't be going around fighting wars. We need to be peacekeepers again.
That's one of the issues that really motivated me to not only organize and mobilize in Vancouver East and Vancouver, but also what motivates me and drives me to become a member of Parliament for Vancouver East. And when the bombs started dropping in Iraq for the illegal war, I was in a meeting at the Maritime Labour Centre with stopwar.ca, and someone said, "The bombs are dropping." And we immediately went out onto the streets in protest in Vancouver against the inhumanity, and we were joined by hundreds of Vancouverites who were unsettled. The history of Vancouver East and Vancouver is leading in terms of the peace movement in our country, and we've been a leading force that Scott has mentioned around the world, around our humanitarian reputation. We need to return to a foreign policy that respects people, that promotes peace and justice in the Middle East, and that brings back our pride as Canadians and what we need to achieve in this world: live peacefully with each other and respectfully.
Gwen.
It is very disheartening to see what has become with Canada's foreign policy and our position in the world. And although that is a national issue, I don't think it's correct to say that it doesn't reverberate around East Vancouver. When you consider the number of people from very many different parts of the world that have come to make their home in Vancouver East, what the government is doing on the international stage, it does reverberate around Vancouver East. It sends a message to the people in Vancouver East that Canada is not a place that has sent out the welcome that it has in the past. It's not a country that is interested in promoting world peace and keeping peace, and it has now become kind of a warring nation. And the people that we have coming to Vancouver East, sometimes they are neighbors of each other. In different parts of the world that are at odds, and they come for refuge in Canada. They don't come to see us continuing on with waging wars and bombing people. It's not the Canada that I grew up in, and it's not the Canada that I want to see continue.
Jenny.
Well, I think we all agree that where Harper's taken us is un-Canadian. And one of the worst things that Harper has done is to take Canada's foreign policies to such an imbalanced position. Everybody on this stage, they're absolutely right, because gone are the days when our world stage objective is to assert a fair, positive, and peaceful position of diplomacy. Canada as a middle power, that's what we did. That was actually what defines us as Canadian. We moved forward and in asserting ourselves, in bringing parties together to find that peaceful resolution and moving forward and supporting humanitarian actions. We have lost all of that, particularly, yes, in the Middle East, but elsewhere as well. Here at home, the government now is talking about, with BC-51, actually taking away our civil liberties. They're ending debate for us to actually address these issues. This is Harper's direction, and we have to all stand together and to say no at home, and to think locally and to act globally.
Thank you. The order for the next question will be Mabel, Gwen, Jenny, Scott. "21 to 45% of prisoners have ADHD. 15 peer-reviewed research studies show that only 5% of adults have ADHD. Would you commit to screening prisoners in federal jails for ADHD?
Thanks, and this is a question that addresses the role of mental health and addictions in our society and how they're treated, and how folks who suffer from mental health and addictions are also criminalized. And you add to that the layer of poverty and inequality, and this is where you see folks who fall into the trap and the revolving cycle of prisons. So these are some of the underlying issues that need to be addressed. We need a national mental health strategy. We need adequate services. In the downtown east side in particular, and I've talked to organizers, there are a number of services. We need detox beds and to ensure that people can get out. With respect to our criminal justice system, we need to ensure that people are not criminalized due to their mental health issues.
Gwen.
Can you please repeat the part of the question about screening?
The question about the screening part was, would you commit to screening prisoners in federal jails for ADHD?
I'm not sure if I'm. Mental illness is a terrible thing, and part of the difficulty is that it is undiagnosed in children and it escalates through the years. ADHD is overdiagnosed in children and it's overtreating. The kind of information that we're finding out about ADHD and its treatment now is quite appalling in terms of how we have looked at it over the past couple of decades. Mental illness comes in many different forms. We have a huge growing proportion of mental illness and emotional illness in teenagers that are in schools that is completely unaddressed, and there is no real way of monitoring it or supporting those. It's not a surprise that they are leaving our education system and finding themselves in criminal situations and landing in imprisonment. It's not the right place for a mental illness to reside is in our prisons. And I think a lot of this could be interrupted if we got rid of some of the contributing factors, such as poverty, such as not a safe place for children to be when they're outside of their family homes, no way of early intervention because we're not seeing them, and thank you.
Debbie.
There's no question in my mind that undiagnosed mental health disorders is the driving force of crime. The lack of support for people with mental health challenges is a result of having people end up in jails. We have had report after report tell us that. We see it in our own community here. And so what do we need to do? Yes, we need diagnosis. That's just one small step in terms of taking action. But Gwen is right. We need to actually take this right to the beginning, where children are in the school system, where they need proper assessment, where families need support to address mental health issues. Families who are under stress because they're living in poverty, because they don't have housing. That will cause you to lose your mind, actually. It will cause me to lose my mind. And you know what? We need to do better, and we haven't done better. So we need a comprehensive strategy to address the social determinants of health to get at this issue. And hopefully, we actually reduce the number of people who are actually in jail. And isn't that a much better solution in addressing crime?
And Scott.
Under Stephen Harper, we've gone from being a preventative society to a punitive society. We've built more prisons in the past decade than in any other period in this country, and it's completely unacceptable. Once someone is in the prison system, we failed them as Canadians. And it's already been mentioned, but the biggest indicator of success in life is early childhood education, and we need to be doing more in those terms and at all levels of government in our country. I also work with Special Olympians on a regular basis, and those are the fortunate ones. They're lucky to have families that have been able to support them, to put them in those programs. And we do such a disservice to those families and those people who don't have the support systems in place for people who are battling mental illness. And it's completely unacceptable that we then punish those folks and put them in jail after they struggle in their lives. Their lives are so difficult, and we need to be doing everything we can to support those folks. I mean, the baby boomer generation is getting further along in their lives, and they have the biggest number of children that are battling mental illness issues in our country, and so that's an issue for all of us. That's everyone's responsibility to take care of the mentally ill children in our society.
Thank you. The order for the next question is Gwen, Jenny, Scott, Mabel. This will be the last question asked, and it is: would you support a change over to proportional representation voting system so that the proportion of the parliamentary seats that a party wins is exactly the same as their party's proportion of the popular vote Canada-wide?
Yes.
You need a minute.
Yes, I would support proportional representation. I think we have a very funny way of forming governments in this country, and it hasn't been looked at critically for a good long time. Now is the time. We have had a government, a majority government that does not represent a majority of Canadians for far too long, and yes, absolutely, it is time to look at how we change our representation in Ottawa.
Jenny.
Well, the short answer is yes, and I would add to that with proportional representation. I would also support, if the community would want to drive this, is a mixed proportional representation sort of format. I think it's high time that we look at electoral reform to ensure that we have better representation of the voices in our community across the nation, and that we also look for ways to ensure that we work sometimes across partisan lines as well. I think it's really important that sometimes we set aside partisan politics and say that this is important, this is how we're going to move forward, and this is how we're going to drive change for our community for the better.
Scott?
I'm already on the record saying this is the most important issue this year. I think we need to work together, and I'm on record as well as saying I'll work with the Liberal Party, I'll work with the Green Party. I'd work with the Conservatives, but I already know their answer on this, that they like the system the way it is because it sets themselves up to win these elections. But we need to have a government that actually represents the people of this country. And when a minority of Canadians are voting for the majority government, it's completely unacceptable. We need to be able to work together, work across party lines to actually enact legislation that benefits all Canadians rather than the garbage that's gone on from 2006 to 2015 in our country.
And Mabel?
Yes, I'm in favor of proportional representation and have campaigned on it since before I was elected. We have a commitment from the federal NDP, we'll be campaigning on this in the upcoming election. And we also have a commitment from our BC NDP that it's a priority. So this is an issue that will be involved in, certainly in Vancouver East and in the upcoming election. It's important. We have now, it's called First Past the Post, and Canada is actually one of the few jurisdictions, a few countries that are still using this. Most other countries around the world, democracies, use some format, and there's a whole range and continuum of proportional representation to address in an equitable fashion to reflect the voting preferences of citizens. So it's an important issue to engage young people and to bring people back into the political process so they feel that their voices are heard, it makes a difference for them to vote, and that they can see some reflection of that.
So that concludes our question period. We're going to now give each candidate 1 minute to make closing statements. We'll go in reverse order from their introductions. So we'll hear from Mabel, Scott, Jenny, and Gwen. Mabel.
Well, that was fast. And do you guys want to keep going? Like we can just talk about all the issues. It's great to be here. Thanks, everybody. We're wrapping up, and I want to appreciate the candidates here And moving forward, it's about a vision of Canada and the passion that I have to, my desire to represent you and the folks here in Vancouver East to bring change. It's about being inclusive and welcoming to people, welcoming them into the political process and building a movement for change. I want to invite you, after this, we're doing a post-debate, having a post-debate pint at Toby's, so very political, just around the corner. And also invite you, we've got a number of campaign events, I know the other candidates as well, invite you to my birthday party, campaign birthday party. Yeah, and bring the party back into the NDP. So it's about having fun, it's about making change, making friends, and really making things happen here in Vancouver East. So thank you very much. It's been a great honor, and look forward to the next few days in the nomination. Hope to see everybody out at the nomination meeting. Thanks.
I'll make it very simple. I'm the only candidate on this stage who can run a social media campaign that can take out Stephen Harper this year. I'm not kidding. I'll unite the artists in Vancouver, I'll unite the people of Vancouver East, and I will eliminate Stephen Harper and the Conservative government this year on social media. That's what I can do. And I'm the only candidate on the stage who can do it. So on March 22nd, if that's what you want, vote for me. And if you like improv, I'm at the Kino Cafe tonight, right after this.
Okay, Jenny.
Well, I have to say, I think the most important fight is not this fight about who is the candidate. I know and I trust that you will choose the best candidate in going forward to ensure that Vancouver East stays orange, to ensure that we bring a strong voice to Ottawa, to ensure someone who knows our community well and who's not afraid to speak up on our behalf. The big fight is actually after the nomination, because we got to defeat and stop Stephen Harper. We got to not let Justin Trudeau, who is really the cousin of Stephen Harper, and to actually strip us of what we need to do, and that is to elect Thomas Mulcair to become the next Prime Minister of Canada. When we talk about all those issues and what we want to do, all of that would depend on you and all of us coming together to fight like hell and to elect the first NDP government in the history of Canada. Thank you.
And Gwen.
Thank you. It's been a tremendous pleasure to be here this evening, and I would like to thank everybody who has come out and listened to all of these candidates. And you know, the wonderful thing about Vancouver East is we got an awful lot of great people that live in this riding, and it's I'm proud to stand on this stage with the three other candidates here this evening. And Jenny is right. The big piece of work is to ensure that this riding elects an NDP MP to send to Ottawa. There has been a tremendous surge in the membership of the riding during this nominating period, and best possible case is if all those new members that have signed up to participate in this race stay on board regardless of who is nominated, and make sure that they are there during the election campaign to work full on, non-stop. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you all, and thank you for being so timely and responsible in your responses.